Hi, Susan for SLC Aquatics coming to you live from the fish room. Hope everybody's having a great Tuesday. And if you all were with me in the premiere that Father Fish was having, I was like, how in the world do I follow that one? Sorry about that. Double talk. How do I follow that one? Father Fish has gotten close to 1,000. He's just, I think, 700 view hours from 4,000 views. He's looking forward to the goal at the end of January of maybe being monetized. And he's just come a long way just from, he said, sitting down and talking. So that's how I've become popular, just the talking. People like the tone of my voice. Uh, Susan Tutu is back, sporting Pet Sonics, sporting the green uh, Team Green Alliance bandana from the Facebook group. And if you haven't gone over there and found that group, that is a channel growing, supportive fish fam community that will help you with problems. Hey, Joseph. Hey, Don. I'll be saying hi to everybody in a minute. That you could go over to Team Green Alliance and grow your channel and lots of advice, lots of support. There is a monthly channel being supported every month. And we've seen a lot of channels grow thanks to the team there at Team Green Alliance on Facebook. We also want to do a shout out for the group. Uh, Fish Tubers notification. We also want to do a shout out for hashtag FishFam group on Facebook. And there are others that are on Facebook that are great groups for you to get a part of and to participate. I want to point you to my Facebook page, SLC Aquatics. And I post things there as well as on my YouTube channel. I post things under the community tab. I also have my Patreon account active at this point, and I'm posting things over there. I post things on Instagram, and I tweet things out on Twitter. So those are the most important places that I participate. And I'm going to go up on the chat now. And before I get started on tonight's subject on pH monitoring and how I do it, I wanted to let you know that there's a new feature in our chat now that the host can pin people's comments, and everybody will see it at the top of your chat box. And I just said welcome to the live stream. I want to say hi to Daryl Deemer and Scott's Aquatics, Don Gallagher, and Angie, aka Mrs. B, the Zen Ginger, JH Aquatics, Chevy Fish, PMG Nation. Hey, Yolanda, Chevy Fish, I said hi. We've got Carlos, Royal Fish Aquatics in the house. Silly Susie, Madfish Diva, Sand Creek Aquatics. Dan Slee is in the house. Pet Sonics, Diego at petsonics.com. We also have Tampa Tom Fishing in the house. We got Dustin Ritchie. Woot woot, Susan is live. Thanks, Dustin. I keep checking the tank behind me when I can catch all of those fish and send them to you. I caught the guppy unboxing. Thanks for sharing. Royal Fish Aquatics did a great unboxing of the American Green Deltas that I sent to him. Pam's in the house. Hey, 54 Punchy. All right, I think I'm called. Oh, Father Fish. Hey, Father Fish. Good to have you with us tonight. I just watched your premiere with you, and I've enjoyed that very much. So, we are going over to talk about. We're going over to talk about the pH monitoring. Why we want to test pH in our water, even when you don't see things going wrong in your aquarium. Father Fish suggested that pH is the number one test that we should be testing for. And why? Why? Because pH is a result of what other things are going on in our water column. And the more I study, the more my mind is being opened to the importance of actually testing our water before things go bad. And in my fish room, I am suffering what they call the old tank syndrome. And there are things that we need to know about in our aquariums that we can avoid old tank syndrome, mainly water changes. Even though the procedure that Father Fish goes through with the dirted aquarium, he says that the water changers are optional if you have that good substrate and that planted aquarium, and you're not overstocked and you're not overfeeding. So I don't think optional is the word that he used. I think he said it was a prerogative of the fish keeper. And hey, Q Aquatics, good to have you in the house tonight. Fancy Tail Aquatics. Hey, guys. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the old tank syndrome, the OTS, instead of the NTS, the new tank syndrome, on one vice versa. But as we keep our aquariums longer, there are things that goes on in that aquarium that we need to pay attention to. And if you've kept fish for any length of time, eventually you're going to bypass the NTS, the new tank syndrome, and wind up in the old tank syndrome. But you can avoid the old tank syndrome with a few pointers here. You want to make sure that you are testing your water perimeters, your pH, your nitrates. I said I discovered that with high levels of nitrates, my pH drops. But there's something else that's going on there that I need to bring out tonight. And then I'm going to show you my pH monitor that my son-in-law gave me, and then my technique with the API master kit. Don't know if y'all have any questions right now, so let's get started. If you've kept fish for any length of time, you will eventually wind up with old tank syndrome. Unfortunately for many fish, too many aquarists and hobbyists assume that the new tank syndrome is the only worry that we have to face. And they imagine that this is the essential establishment period. And there's a lot more establishment and struggle that goes on that can cause instability in our aquariums. And because of this, we get caught up by an equally dangerous situation that could happen in large fish death and just bad water. In old tank syndrome, the definition of old is open for some discussion, because tanks have been running successfully for months and for years, and then they may slowly turn bad, or they might suddenly crash altogether with multiple casualties and bad discouragements and fish keepers who want to just give up. But the problem all too frequently lingers unseen, because you can't see what's going on in your water. You have to test your water. Imagine this scene, if you will. A fish keeper has a tank that they've kept successfully for 2 years, like moi, like me. And in the same time, some fish have grown while others, through old age, die off, or plants get large, but they might be skinny and leggy, and then start getting holes in their leaves. And so you know something is out of balance within your water column. But the newbie doesn't know what's going on. This fish keeper opts to buy maybe some more fish from a local from a local store, deciding to pick up some delicate tetras, and given how mature their tank is, a day or two after adding those fish, problems are noted. And what do we do as fish keepers? We gather those fish back up. We take them back to the local fish store and we say, you sold me sick fish. And a lot of times that's not the problem. The problem is your water quality is off for that new fish. The immediate impression that the fish keeper has is like, I can't keep those fish, or something's wrong with the fish at the store. As the retailer requests a sample of the fish keeper's water so he can test it, a lot of times it turns out to be your water quality is off. And if I was going for an easy sale in a store, I might tell you, optimize your filtration, do some water changes, and throw these fish in there and everybody will be just fine. But it's not that simple. Filters only convert waste in your aquariums, and certainly not into something safe. Yeah, we know beneficial bacteria builds up in that filter, but also ammonia from the fish is converted through the nitrite and into nitrates. And that's the conversion that goes on in our water column through the cycle. And nitrate isn't exactly a nice chemical to have around either. And here's an example that I found in this article that is absolutely, I just loved it. I loved the example that it gave. In humans, nitrates is implicated as a carcinogenic. Did you know that? I didn't know that. And while the lethal levels for different fish are slowing down, or slowly being understood, as long as the filter's working and as long as the fish are producing waste, there will be nitrate produced. It would be wrong to say that some fish develop a tolerance for nitrate, because they really don't. It only implies that they can't be unharmed by it. Rather, I consider a long-term nitrate exposure in fish as to alcoholism in humans. It slowly affects our organs. It reduces our lifespan. It plays havoc on our immune systems. And to be in optimal health, we need to live our lives devoid of it. Like drinking humans, a little bit of it might not be a major problem as a lot of it would be. And as individuals, we all have different tolerant levels, just like certain fish, certain species of fish have different tolerance of nitrates. And also another problem that we have in our aquariums is phosphates. Phosphates are more important to follow in saltwater aquariums than it is in freshwater aquariums. But when you see problems with your plants, they're like an overabundance of algae, the number one mineral to go to is phosphates. So I'm going to go back in the chat here in a little bit after I finish this article. Phosphates is to be considered, how do we say it, as it's introduced sometimes through the foods that we feed our fish. And if it's not metabolized to any degree, it ends up excreted as a waste. And then as that waste of phosphate builds up within your water column, you have problems with outbreaks of different kinds of algae. Okay, marine keepers in particular struggle to control it. And as phosphate builds, the most obvious symptom is increased algae growth. In waterways, excess phosphate leads to, oh boy, here's a good word, eutrophication. And that is EUTROPHICATION. And it is a prime cause of eutrophication, an excess phosphate. and it turns rivers and lakes bright green with algae, stripping the water of oxygen, killing the inhabitants. And such pandemics are not well known in aquaria, though it's not to say that they never will happen. And even though I'm going back to my 55-gallon that started out at 7.9 pH, I started having problems a month ago with my rainbows, which are sensitive to pH instabilities, which I'm learning because I've lost the whole colony of rainbows except one fish. So I don't know if I can get back to all of this right here. The acid effect. And that's what's happened in my 55. You know, when you start having problems in your aquarium, if you really care, you want to diagnose it. And Lucas, I want to thank God for Lucas and Father Fish and all of you last week who tried your best to help troubleshoot what was going on with my 55. And the bottom line is pH instability and old tank syndrome. I did do what you all suggested. I got my rainbows out of the 55 into a 5-gallon bucket with fresh water, dechlorinated, with a heater and a new filter. All right, going back into the chat to see where we're all at. Fancy Tail Aquatics is in the house. Q Aquatics, Daryl Deemer, hello. Chewy, hello. Eventually, water change is necessary. Thank you, Father Fish. Don't forget to hit that like button, everybody. I have OTS in one tank for sure, Fancy Tail Aquatics says. And there's another thing that when you have a lot of plant growth, like Scott did with the Java moss and guppy grass, if you take a bunch of that out at one time, you're going to upset that water column. And that's why we do small water changes and small plant trimming. You don't want to do a whole lot of plant removal at one time without doing a water change and watching that tank very carefully, because you're going to upset something that's going on, that balance that's in that aquarium. The Zen Ginger says, I heard that hydrogen peroxide helps old tank. Anyone know the facts on that? Zen Ginger, it can help to a point, but you will have another chemical process that goes on in that aquarium, because that hydrogen peroxide goes through different chemical changes that causes death in your aquarium. So I haven't studied it deeply, but I do know that the hydrogen peroxide helps, but then you have to do another step of doing water changes, because that chemical, the hydrogen peroxide, goes through other chemical changes that actually causes death, and it will increase oxygen at first, and then the chemical change that the hydrogen peroxide goes through will actually consume oxygen and cause death in your aquarium. So using hydrogen peroxide in your aquarium, you have to really know the facts before you use it, or you will cause other problems. Don Gallagher says, I check my KH if it drops. I know my pH is low. Chewy says, I do believe that you do not get old tank syndrome with bare bottom tanks, as most of the bacteria is in filter systems. That way it is when substrates have got too much of a bioload. Okay, Chewy, I agree with that. But just like you said, with a bare bottom aquarium, if you're using like a sump or something outside of that aquarium to filter, you're still having this bad stuff building up in your filtration. And that's another step that we're going to go through tonight, is along with pH testing, nitrate testing, ammonia testing. Those are very basic tests that we do within our aquariums, but we have to go a step further. And the reason I'm hesitant is because when I learn new information, it takes me a little while. I have to really repeat over and over again and experience things over and over again. And I'm not trying to teach the experienced fish keeper here anything, because you already know these things. But I'm considered an intermediate fish keeper, and I am learning things about my aquarium through the problems I'm having, that I could have avoided these problems if I had taken other steps prior to it. The fish store, thank you, Father Fish. The fish store would be wise to ask for a water sample. Yes, they would be wise. But a lot of box stores like Petco and PetSmart, some of them have stopped doing a free water test, and they've quit giving you store credit for bringing back dead fish, mainly because the fish keeper is accusing the store of selling bad fish, when really it's the fish keeper's mistake. Bare bottom tanks cannot be balanced. They cannot be balanced. And what you're doing with a bare bottom tank with no filtration, I have sponge filters, but I have an aquarium that is bare bottom. And if I don't vacuum the muck off of the bottom of that aquarium on a weekly basis, all of that muck, like Father Fish has told us, gets into the bad bacteria, gets into the water column. So vacuuming that muck up and doing I do basically 50% water changes weekly. That's what keeps my aquarium stable, not balanced, but somewhat stable. And I have plants in that aquarium. I have large amount of Java moss. So that's what's keeping that aquarium stable. I didn't say balanced. The store, okay. Chewy says, that is also very true. That is why water changes are important in bare bottom tanks. Nitrates is booze, Father Fish. Amazing idea. Yes. Because if you watch your fish, high levels of nitrates, your fish become lethargic. They eventually they have shorter life spans. You're weakening the organs. You're actually the nitrates is intoxicating the fish, damaging their organs, making them lethargic. They can't swim, they can't eat, because the nitrates have intoxicated them. Rum is good for my health, LOL. That is a personal opinion. Oh, it jumped. All right, Dustin says, sorry, at work, so I'm kind of in and out. Okay, gotcha. Aqua Balls is in the house. Hello, Aqua Balls. Means dying, rot, and decay. That's right. Fancy Tail Aquatics, very well said. I'm say topping off is not as healthy as water changes. My 2 cents, no matter how many plants or depth of the substrate you have. Yeah, topping off, all it's doing is temporarily diluting the junk that's already in the aquarium. You have to remove the junk one way or the other. It has to either be processed through osmosis or photosynthesis, Y'all getting me here, getting me all stirred up in my science, my little elementary science. Magnesium can also be measured, but phosphorus is a major chemical involved in plant growth. It is, and I'm going to show you all here in a minute, that you can purchase a phosphorus test kit, okay? Father Fish, top off increases solids in the water. Eventually, the Dead Sea is created. Yes, and I don't do TDS. I don't have a TDS meter. I don't understand TDS. And when I become educated and knowledgeable and understand it, then I will start doing that. Water changes reduce the buildup of minerals. Yes, it does. Sand Creek says hello. Hello, Sand Creek. Father Fish, really good advice. Small changes. Hi, Storm. Storm Riders Aquatics. Hello, we missed you. Well, you know you were trying and things didn't work out. Think of H2O2 as a disinfectant, Father Fish says. Yes, we use H2O2, which is peroxide, 3% peroxide over the counter, as a disinfectant that actually, when applied to black hair algae, it appears to kill it. It bleaches it out, just like it would if you poured it on my hair. It would bleach my hair out. That seems accurate, Father Fish. Also, Melvin, what happened to you? Fancy Tail. Yes, Chewy says H2O2 is a disinfectant that can kill bacteria and other things. Yes, the H2O2 poured into the water column increases oxygen, but it also kills your beneficial bacteria, causes your tank to recycle, which causes another problem within the aquarium because the peroxide goes through a chemical change and it causes beneficial bacteria die off, which adds all of that into the water column, and you've got death. Mr. B says all those pesky snails everyone does not like are an excellent gauge of overall tank health. That's a good point to bring out. And like I said, the problem I was having in the 29, I have all kinds of dead snail shells all over the place. ER Aquatics is in the house. Hello, ER Aquatics and Aquatic Nest. I've got to add my timestamps back. There we go. All right, 6:23. I'm at 6:17. Pet Sonic says no. Petco still does free water testing and takes dead fish back, or should, with a receipt within 30 days. Thank you, Diego. My local Petco quit doing that. They may have they may have started back up again, but they had quit at one point. Zen Ginger says, okay, I was just Googling how to get rid of blackbeard algae, and I read H2O2 could help reset an old tank. Just thought I'd ask. Thanks. Thank you for Googling that and sharing that information with us. Fancy Tales says to Mr. Bees that 100% agree snails are a good thing. They die off something is going wrong, as in if they grow into thousands, something is up. My 2 cents. Thank you. Yeah, large numbers of snails in the aquarium, they put off a large amount of waste as well, which adds to the bioload of your aquarium. Mr. B's Fishing Things, Dustin says, since my tank's cycles have gotten back under control, my little snails have exploded and my plants have gone gangbusters. Father Fish said, what happened to that snail comment? I tell my customers the excess of snails is taking care of the excess of food. Basically, snails Save the tank from foolish fish feeders. When I have a snail bloom, as they say, I know I'm overfeeding. So I fast my fish for 24 to 48 hours and come back feeding little bits at a time. PetSonic says that if they bring a dead fish, they should bring a water sample, and Petco emphasizes that. At least they should. At the one I work at, they do. And that's very good, Diego. And I do know that Petco does have a corporate office, but there are individual franchises that sometimes do things just a little different. BTW Aquatics is in the house. Hello. Danikin's in the house. Hello. Chewy says to ER Aquatics, my favorite fish to keep were guppies, and the largest fish I looked after was an Asian arowana. And I'm trying to get to the end of chat. Big J's Fish Keepers in the house. Hello. I do believe I'm at the end, 6:25. All right. I'm going to share this on the screen because I didn't get to say it, Dustin. All right. I am going to switch my camera over to the Logitech that will show you the pH meter that my son-in-law gave me. And I forget who it's by right now because I can't read it. I think it's American Marine Incorporated. It is a pinpoint pH monitor. And I do not know whether or not it is reading accurate or not because I don't have the calibration solution yet. I'm going to order it. But I do know that this meter was reading 5.5 and my API master kit only goes to 6.0. So it was reading 5.5 earlier today. I did a 10% water change a few moments ago just before this live stream. Now it was reading 5.99 an hour ago. It has dropped back down to 5.94. It runs on a battery. It does have a probe that I would like to show to you that is hanging beside the thermometer. And that is a probe that sits in the water column, and it will read and monitor the fluctuations within the water column. As you see right now, the meter is reading 5.94. Okay? It's going to be a little hard for you to read. Now it's fluctuating between 5.94 and 5.93, which to me means the pH is still dropping in this aquarium. Now, we also have studied the fact that carbon dioxide in the water column can also cause pH to drop. What is pH? pH means the power of hydrogen. pH means the power of hydrogen. Hydrogen in the water column affects the minerals, or it's a result of the minerals in our water column. Coming back to you with the other camera. So, I'm trying to figure out how to get that banner off the screen. All right, Petco is not a franchise, and they have policies in place. You can call corporate if they don't abide by them, and you cannot buy into owning a Petco. Okay, thank you for that correction, Fancy Tail says, that is a nice pH meter, but 6 seems a little low for where you live, or am I assuming you have harder water towards the coast? Okay, Scott, catch up with us. I'm having a problem in this 55. My water in this area is 7.2 out of the tap. I have 5 ppms nitrates out of the tap. I have video that I will be editing and releasing. I've been studying the ammonia in this tank was 0.25 ppm. My nitrates were off the scale. My nitrates were 160. I did a 70% water change. I got my nitrates down to 40 ppm with 70% water change. My pH still read 6.0. My nitrates came down to 40 ppm. My ammonia went to 0 with a 70% water change. Today, I did a 10% water change. I know Father Fish has been telling me to cap it with 1 inch or 2 of sand. I've added a 1/2 inch of sand because I wanted to ask Father Fish, and if you're still in the chat, I wanted to ask you, when I add 1 to 2 inches of sand on top of this substrate, do I remove the plants and replant them into the new 2 inches of sand? I want to know that. Do I remove the plants and replant them in the new 1 to 2 inch of sand, or do I just pour 1 to 2 inches of new sand on top of everything? Because I have rocks and logs that I need to not bury. So that's my question to Father Fish. Your water is almost sterile, not necessary to move the plants. I can move the logs, the wood, and my lava rock, pull them up out of the new sand. Yes, this is one thing I'm learning, Father Fish, is capping the old substrate with 1 to 2 inches of sand makes this water column sterile, because I had some plant dieback in my 20 gallon. And I'm going to show you all that in a few minutes. This is the update in capping the 20 gallon with 2 inches of sand. And by the way, everyone, my koi cats are doing fine. They do not have any barbell damage, and they do not have any sores on their stomachs. It's almost like they knew this is a new substrate, like after a storm washing in new sediment into their living area. And they are just being very careful. They're not digging down into it, because this is sandblasting sand. Your water is sterile, not necessary to move the plants. But the sand in a 1/2 inch a week. Okay, so I put a 1/2 inch in, so this week I can put another 1/2 inch in. Don Gallagher says, yes, Father Fish, that's what I would do. 1 teaspoon of baking soda per 30 gallons changes the pH 1 point at a time. Baking soda, yes, which is bicarbonate. It will turn into bicarbonate. Your water needs hardening. Do bicarb to increase carbonates. That will stabilize the pH. Okay, do I do that all at one time, or do I do it gradually? The ER Aquatics says to Dustin, great answer. I concur. We have tons of guppies and endlers. 11 tanks dedicated. Nice substrate bed. Thank you, JH. Okay, I'm switching back over. Okay. Thank you guys for that help. Do I add the baking soda at one time? Let me go back up. You said 1 teaspoon per 30 gallons. That is 50 gallons. So I can put 2 teaspoons of baking soda in at one time. And that will be, won't that be a temporary fix? You said add a 1/2 inch of sand each week and no need to move the plants. Okay. I have 1 rainbow fish still inside the bucket. The other one was deceased this evening. I like crushed coral added. I don't have any more crushed coral this time. Do it over a period of an hour or so. Thank you, Father Fish. Put the bicarb in, measure the pH, and it will not be temporary. Oh, it won't be temporary. It will stay within until the next water change. I don't think you need crushed coral when your tap pH is 7.2. When my KH drops and pH crashes quickly, I bring it up very fast with baking soda. Okay. Because if I can get my pH back up into the 7s, I can add this rainbow fish back into that aquarium. Yes, thank you. Hey, Bob at Kaler's Aquatics. Hey, James at Fish Room Fever. To the Oh, the ER. I have various sources of new fish. I've had an inler or 2, but none have proliferated. All mutts here. Some have some ender colors, but not extra small size. Okay, great. You do need carbonates. Thank you. I was going to ask, the carbon that comes in our filters, is that carbonate? I know they call it active carbon. Don says, Susan, your fish have sat in a low KH for a couple weeks. I believe I would slowly bring it up over a few days. When I notice the crash in one day, I bring it up right away and it's fine. Thank you, guys. If you remember, do this test. Pour a glass of tap water, measure the TDS pH, let it sit 1 hour, test it again, and then again 12 hours later. I'm betting your pH is a lot different 1 hour to 12 hours later. No, that is not carbonates. Okay. I have powdered, what is it? Powdered, I'll think of it in a minute. Aquarium now has rimless tanks as well, mostly nano beta tanks. Awesome. All right, I would like to get back to that article if I could. And I will share it on the screen this time, because you all know I'm reading it, right? So let's go over to how to avoid the old tank syndrome. And I'm going to put it full screen. Okay. All right. How to avoid the old tank syndrome. We got up to the acid effect. The worst culprits for OTS are tanks that become victims of their own success. An underlying problem involves the hardness, the mineral content of the water. Carbonates play a vital role in buffering aquarium pH. Thank you, guys. As well as providing a source of carbon for some plants and bacteria, specifically those bacteria helping to convert fish waste. When carbonates become depleted, 2 problems follow. Firstly, the osmoregulation of many fish The way in which they regulate their minerals in their body is compromised, sometimes to lethal extents. Secondly, without the buffering effect, the minerals to keep it in place, pH in the tank can drop or swing wildly, leading to acute acidosis. Either of these can kill a fish outright, and both will cause acute and chronic stress. I think we're on the same page here, guys. Don't you think? Kaler is lurking, putting groceries away. pH can increase from 6 to 8 without harming the fish. The opposite is not true. If you drop pH from 8 to 6 quickly, everything will die. Isn't that interesting? Hello, Amber at Big City Bettis. Good to see you. Toot toot, Fish Fan Mom. Yes, Bob, this is for you. I think we are on the same page here. Dan Slee said to Father Fish, I beg to differ on the big thing is the cycle. Bacteria is much different at a pH of 6 versus 8. Yes, Dan mentioned that last week, that putting the rainbow fish into a bucket with my tap water 7.2, if I moved the beneficial bacteria, if I moved the filter media from the 55 into the 7.2, he said that my beneficial bacteria in my filter would not like that pH change. So I did not use any seeded media. I used a brand new filter, and I added some quick API quick start to the tank, which allows instant addition of fish. That's what it says. I know it's not true to a complete, but it helps. It helps limit toxic ammonia and nitrite, and it helps prevent fish loss. So it is nitrifying bacteria in this bottle, and it's all natural. But it does help. It does not work completely. You cannot have a large fish stock. You should only have 2 or 3 fish in your aquarium. TDS doesn't affect the pH directly like KH carbonate hardness does. Non-bicarbonates like calcium, that's it. I have powdered calcium, aka GH, will not affect your pH. Big City Bettis says, dank tanks experienced this recently. Not meaning to call you out, Maddie, just sharing a relatable story. And the thing of it is, osmotic pressure causes cell structure to explode if it is suddenly decreased. See, a lot of things that I do not know about the osmotic pressure. I do know that there is a difference in the cell structure in the fish from acidic to alkalinity. And like Father Fish says, a decrease in that a sudden decrease causes the cell structures to explode in sudden death. Nutrifying bacteria still needs to establish a colony before it can do any good. Don't fully trust bottled cycles. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It says so, but I experienced guppy death. So it has to establish a colony. This is good information, guys. Daniken says, I've used bacteria-filled sponge filters on all of my tanks. Never have had a crash. It works well for starting new tanks. Yeah, and what we were talking, Daniken, about, Dan Slee and I, was if I went from an acidic 6.0 pH, that filter's been running like that for probably at least a month. That beneficial bacteria in that filter would not like the alkaline 7.2 pH, which means it would probably die off, and it would not maintain it may bring it down. It may bring the pH down in the bucket. Yep, Father Fish, very true. Just adding another aspect to it. Thank you, Amber. Bob says, Susan and all, I'm doing a giveaway on Dan's Fish Stream tomorrow night, Wednesday night, to thank subscribers for getting me to 1K a few weeks ago. It will be done in conjunction with a fundraiser to be announced. Awesome, Bob, and congratulations. Don Gallagher says, you're right, then carbonate hardness, or KH, is what directly affects the pH. When I have a pH of 6 or less, my carbonate hardness is 0 to 1. Wow, y'all are getting into the math here for me. Don says, let me put that on the screen. Da, da, da. La, la, la. I got to catch up. It's not on my screen. Dan's sleep. Huh. There it is. Well, they're not coinciding tonight. I have 32 watching. I hope that this is helping somebody. Please sound out if it is. If it's too confusing, I can break it down a little bit more. Yeah, Dan, I have a lot of experience with this, as I had well water in the past that started with a 3 kH and dropped pretty rapidly. I learned how to keep it stable with baking soda. Okay, there it is. All right, we're caught up now. I have 2 chats open. Father Fish says, absolutely right, Don. Okay, so what Don said, I'm going to put on the screen. And very educational, something to review and pause. Yes. Sharing with practical fish keeping in the UK. Yes. It's telling me what screen I'm sharing. Silly Susie says, yes, very helpful to know what signs to watch out for. First sign, I was having my fish swim in the flow of the filter, and they would not stop doing that. If I fed them, they would come out and eat a little bit and go right back into swimming. And in nature, when a fish is trying to get out of water that is harming him, they will try to swim upstream. And that's nature. Upstream gets them to cleaner water, supposedly. It wasn't getting them into cleaner water because my filter was producing low oxygen water due to the beneficial bacteria in the filter not being sufficient. Wow. For the bioload, because the pH was too low and it was acidic. Does that make sense? Deborah had a question. Would more baking soda need to be added with each water change? If the carbonate level is high, no additional bicarb is needed. So if my pH level comes up to 7 by adding 2 teaspoons of baking soda and maintains that, I don't have, with a water change, I won't have to, because with the water change, the new water that I'm changing with is already 7.2. So it should be maintaining that alkaline pH within that aquarium. Correct. Thank you. It's clicking. Kent's Fish is in the house. Hello, Kent. How are you doing? Is Fish Tropic in the house? Fish Tropic is in the house. Wherever you live, they have a water table you can look at. Yes. Gallagher says, yes, KH test is carbonate hardness. I just tested my KH in all of my tanks today. All right, so we're on the topic of carbonate, right? The acid effect. And how carbonates, when they're depleted, two problems follow. Firstly, the osmoregulation of many fish, and I don't need to go back and repeat that, is compromised. Secondly, without buffering effects of the minerals to keep it in place, the pH in the tank can drop or swing severely, causing fish death. Bacterial action, this is where Dan Slee was talking about the beneficial bacteria in the filter. The bacterial action inside the filter further alters your pH. The biological bacteria, as they work, produce quantities of hydrogen ions. In water, these take the form of hydronium, and the amount of hydronium relative to the amount of hydroxide dictates how acidic the tank is. The more hydronium, the lower the pH. And with a busy filter churning the stuff out, the pH levels can soon plummet. Combine that with the simultaneous removal of buffering carbonates. As already mentioned, you have a pH disaster in the waiting, and that's what I've been experiencing in my 55. To make things worse, oh no, please don't make things worse. If the pH does drop too far, then it will stop the filter from working properly. In acidic conditions, the bacteria that converts ammonia struggle to function, and below 6, they might stop working altogether. So, I'm in trouble. Coming back to you guys, because soon we will be coming up with a solution, right? Your water is lacking in carbonates. Ditto. Amen. All right. What did I miss? Dan Slee says, basically the acid in your tanks is coming from organics breaking down, not counting buffering substrates. And therefore, my filter, my beneficial bacteria in my filter is no longer helping, but hurting. So I need to find some good seeded filter media. Oh, Dan Slee says, okay, JH says, nice, Dan, when the God help me. When the, oh God, JH, you're killing me. 652. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I got to go up and find it. All right, here it is. When the, y'all help me. When the Laganandra carolensis grows out and makes runners in 1 year, and I want some. So that is a plant that JH and Dan Slee are talking about. Okay, Dan Slee says, the KH can come from rocks like limestone of many names, your tap water, gravel, crushed coral, etc. and it will react with the acid in the water. Okay. All right, calcium powder, Father Fish says. Yes. Diatomaceous earth, crushed coral, any other source of calcium in your substrate will keep the hardness up. Thank you. Looking forward to tomorrow. All right, guys, we got 5 more minutes. I know I've missed some wonderful things in the chat. You have hard water, excellent. Mine is 250, and I add wastewater from my RO, raising it to about 400. Eggshells too. Yes, Chevy Fish. Dansley, I'm going to send one whole bunch to YKK. All right. Don says, me to Fisher and fever. I need to just take the plunge and dirt my 55. Hey, also, prevention trumps cure. Every perimeter, oh, I need to share this on the screen, sorry. Okay, here we go, guys. Here's the prevention. Every perimeter mentioned here can be tested inexpensively and easily. Liquid tests, dip strips, monitoring devices. There is no excuse. Folks who say they can visually assess their tanks are deluding themselves. In other words, you're fooling yourself at the peril of their fish. Over the years, there's been something of a misunderstanding. Many aquarists are only keen to test, and in some cases have their retailer test for them, while they are cycling the filter at the start of the tank's life. Testing for the chemicals associated with old tank needs to be performed weekly and or fortnightly at least. Nitrate, GH, KH, phosphate, and pH are all reliable indicators for the health of your tank. At an absolute minimum, nitrate and pH need to be closely monitored. Starting by testing your water supply where you use your tap. And I explained what was coming out of my tap earlier so you can rewind and replay it at a later date. Or RO mixes purchased from a store. Unless you're deliberately altering the water in the tank with acidic products like catappa leaves, then a difference of 0.5 pH between the aquarium and the water source is a huge cause for concern. Nitrate levels always need to be low, but if the tank water tests at 40 ppm greater than the water source, alarm bells should be ringing. If you test for phosphate, then levels in the tank should be no higher than 0.5 ppm greater than those in the water source. At 5 ppm or more, action is essential. And I have 5 ppm coming out of my tap. GH and KH levels in the tank. And this article is confirming everything that was said in chat tonight. So thank you, guys. KH and GH levels in the tank should be no more than a couple of degrees lower than the source, though it's likely that KH will deplete faster out of the two. Unless you're keeping incredibly softer fish, a tank reading below 5 degrees KH is a warning that cannot be ignored. Testing is one thing, but the actual process of prevention counts for even more. The way these issues are avoided, here's the answer, guys. The way that these issues are avoided is simple. Water changes, gravel cleaning, and maintenance. There's no short cure here and no way to avoid the inevitable. Old tank syndrome is caused by a lack of tank care, plain and simple. Guilty. Water changers will fix most things. Taking old water out, replacing it with fresh will dilute down to the levels of nitrates and phosphates. Because the newer water will be richer in minerals, it will also help to boost hardness, increasing the GH and KH and stabilizing the pH. All your fish have fevers. Sounds like sillies. The dogs ate my fish. Add more than enough and it will not over dissolve. always interesting hearing stuff like this as a shrimp keeper. If things really are extreme to the point of a tank crash, you may want to perform a larger change of 50 to 75% water change. Though this is a drastic measure, adding a mineral product such as Tropic Marin Remineral Tropic will help instantly boost the KH and GH. An excess of ammonia in the water may be treated with like API ammo lock. Nitrates and phosphates can be reduced by using dedicated resin media placed into the filter. Essentially, all of these points need to be tackled at once. Addressing nitrate levels while the pH plummets is like washing a car while the engine is on fire. All right. Guys, I want to thank you so much for being with me tonight. I want to appreciate everybody that helped in the chat. We had Father Fish, we had Dan Slee, we had Don Gallagher, we had JH Aquatics, and many more who helped input tonight. And I'm putting about a pound per 10 gallons. So everybody, thank you so much. I want to take this off the screen. Fish room fever, looking forward to, anyway. I really have lost my chat tonight. So here is Father Fish, 1 p.m. tomorrow, followed by 2 p.m. tomorrow. So we want to say thank you, everyone, for joining me tonight. I hope that you've gotten something out of this. If you want to know where that article is from, that article is from Practical Fish Keeping at .co.uk. And I want to tell you all thank you. I will not be with you Friday morning. I have a service call to attend to, but I will be with you all maybe Saturday morning. Thank you. God bless you. Vanaskis, hi. Kent, so take the filter out and let the plants be the filter, right? Good night, everyone. Susan for SLC Aquatics, hashtag FishFamMom, touching lives, one fish at a time. See ya.